Hey guys, this is Vijay from Tech Today American, and today it's a very interesting subject which is very near to my heart. As like a lot of people there are in the world, I also um, have used Apple products for a long time. So growing up in India, we never really had any exposure to Apple products because there it was all Microsoft. And I remember in engineering college, we just had one Mac in one of the labs, and we couldn't access it. And all I heard about it was that it's a great machine, but we really never even used it. And I never had any Apple products. And the very first Apple product I got was an iPod, which I remember was very very expensive when I got it at that time. It was like $300 or something like that. That was, I believe, video iPod, the color video iPod. Now, after that, my real introduction to the Apple ecosystem started with the iPhone. I remember getting the very first iPhone for my birthday, and it was simply amazing. Um, and after that, I got many other. I got the iPad. I got this iPad Mini, as you can see. I still have it. This is the iPad Mini with cellular. And I believe the best iPhone design I ever seen so far was iPhone 5, which was the last iPhone which Steve Jobs released. And I read his biography, I've read a lot about him, I've seen his movie. He was a deeply inspiring person, to say the least. Even in my work, I've tried to follow some of the things which he has said in his life, like, really live with the problem and then try again and again, and eventually you will find some really great solutions and things will really work really nicely. So what happened, right? That I'm trying to explain that. You might think that Apple is gone down now, but many people like me have felt that the decline started not long after Steve Jobs, died. And I have the iPad with me because I believe that, the first big, um, what should I say, the first big setback which I could see started with the iPad. Why do I say that? Because I believe that iPad sales could increase even now. And there are things which Apple is doing, which sort of Steve Jobs did predict during his lifetime, because of which it's not selling as much as it could, honestly speaking. Now the best thing about the whole Apple ecosystem right now is obviously iOS, and the best thing about iOS is that not many people know this, but for people who have never used the internet, for people who have never used any gadgets ever, this is the best platform for them to actually get their feet wet on the internet and all the services it provides. I know people who have never used the internet, never got along with any Android phone, and who started using these services when they got their first iPhone, and that is where it really shines. Now, what happened was that I believe the decline started right from the iPhone 6. Before the iPhone 6, like when Steve Jobs was still alive, there was an edginess to the design. I mean, remember the iPhone 4? The iPhone 4 was an amazing phone. Even I remember using it when it first came out, and I remember it was the first device I ever seen where the software melded so well with the hardware, you thought it was part of the hardware. The iPhone 5, the design of the iPhone 5 was the best design of any iPhone which I ever seen, and it just went downwards from there. And that is just in terms of the hardware design, right? In terms of the other stuff, like what I really wanted to say here was that there is other things. I think the primary reason, the primary thing which happened after that was that basically, what does a company do, right? What is the goal? What is the driving factor? And Steve Jobs correctly said that, when a company doesn't just want to sell more and more, and that is their goal, they're just going to try and do something so that they can sell more and more. The end goal is not to make a great product, it's just to sell more and make more money. And that is where I believe that it went downhill. That is the reason why you are seeing that decline. And there is no, and I can give you a concrete example of it. I mean, many people say many things, some people don't like the shape of the Apple Watch. Yeah, I mean, this Apple Watch, Steve Jobs wouldn't have built an Apple Watch like this. When it first came out, it was the most disappointing thing I ever seen. Honestly speaking, I can say that, I mean, it would have been great as a circular phone, but it was not circular. And I know many people want a circular phone, and that is just only part of it. The other part of it is that this is okay. There is some part of it which says Apple, but it's not an edgy design. It's not. It doesn't have that characteristic. I can only describe the edginess which Steve Jobs brought with, that perfection, that straight lines of the iPhone 4, these, whatever they call it. It's not edgy. It's just something which is very carefully designed. A lot of thought has been put into it, but that something is no longer there. And the other fact of it is that, and I'll give you a concrete example of what Apple would have done if they wanted to sell the best product versus if they wanted to sell more product, right? The iPhone 6, the iPhone 7, the iPads, all of that, how they have built it is, and even the Macs, honestly speaking, is like, what if I wanted to sell more and more? What would I do, right? That is what you see. And while they were just trying to improve the supply chain, sell more and more, sell more efficiently, make more profit out of it, that is not, in my opinion, what they would have done if they wanted to sell the best product. Okay, so, right. I think that if Apple wanted to make the best product, they would have had OLED screens on the tablets and phones a long time ago. The reason why they did not do that, I believe, is simply because they couldn't make as much profit as they could have if they had used OLED panels. I believe that if Steve Jobs was running Apple right now, it would be very different, because he would focus on making the best product, not on making product most efficiently with giving you more profit. And part of that would be OLED screens. The reason I say OLED screens is that not many people talk about this, but the regular LCD screens, right, it may be okay for a lot of people, but honestly, it hurts your eyes. There is no doubt about it, because especially with the large sized iPads, and the bigger the screen gets and you're holding it like this near to your face, a 10-inch or a 12-inch just throws too much light, right? And people who have eye problems, it gets worse. And people who don't have eye problems, they will get eye problems because it is just throwing too much light near the face. Now, if it was a laptop, it wouldn't be a problem, because laptops naturally stand far away from you. Like it's a little bit far away. But this iPad is something which you hold really near your face, or a phone is something which you hold really near your face. And if Apple really wanted to sell the best product, they would have had OLED screens a long time ago, both on the iPhones as well as on the iPads. I think that part of the reasons why iPads are not selling is because, like, I know I agree with some of it, what they say is that, people are able to use the iPads longer. But it's also true that iPads are not really good for your eyes. And if they had an iPad in the right form factor, and I believe this is the right form factor, then it wouldn't be such a big problem. Because this is just the right amount of size. This is the perfect size for a tablet which doesn't harm your eyes. How do I know this? Because I've used iPads. and I had to return them or I had to sell them because it was hurting my eyes too much. The iPad mini was a lot better, but I unfortunately can't use this iPad mini because even this hurts my eyes because it's an LCD screen. But I go and use the Samsung Galaxy Tab, which has an OLED screen. I don't have any problems at all. Now the problem with that obviously is that it runs Android, and Android simply doesn't give me some of the enjoyable aspects of it, the operating system. I like iOS better. So my question is, why doesn't have an OLED screen yet? I really don't. I don't need a lot of. There are a lot of people who don't use the iPads to create content. They just maybe want to use it to read a book, or to listen to music, or when they are home, they just want it to use this as a to instead of the iPhone. And I believe that a lot more people would buy iPads if they first of all updated this thing. They haven't updated this in a long time, and it had an OLED screen. I know that making OLED screens are more expensive and it has other issues related to it, and they might not make as much money out of it as they could by using LCDs. But the fact remains that if they really wanted to make the best product, then they simply would have used OLED screens. So that is part of it. So what else is there, right? The other aspect of this whole thing is that for a long time, Macs are great. I have an iMac right here. It's a great iMac, right? Nothing wrong with that. But the problem with when I had to buy a Mac, I had to go and I had to get a Windows PC because at 1 or 2 years ago, the Macs were like the kind of CPUs they had and the kind of memory they had, and it's not upgradable. It would cost too much, and I know that I know that a Mac will last longer than a PC. I have Macs, very old Macs, but it just simply didn't make sense at that time to buy. While the situation has improved a little bit right now, it's still very expensive, and I just don't understand. I honestly don't understand why they can't build a MacBook, which has user replaceable components. Because honestly, I would love to use a Mac, but I want to use a Mac longer. I don't want to get stuck with the RAM soldered onto the motherboard, hard drive which is not upgradable. So a lot of people like me, we continue to use the older version of the MacBook, and we just upgrade the SSD and stuff like that and continue to still use it after 8 years. Who has ever heard of a laptop which lasted for 8 years? I have. It runs almost like new, like the day I got it. Because I upgraded the RAM, I upgraded the SSD, but the CPU is still very old. It's really sad that, I agree that a big portion of the market might like those thin, non-user upgradable computers. But there is still a lot of people who just would like to get an upgradable Mac. It's because it's not just about hardware. You would basically want to run the OS X, and we really don't have a choice anymore because you're stuck with whatever you get. And so that is what it is. Now, with respect to their share prices dropping and all of that stuff, it's a real tragedy because I believe they made a mistake with the iPhone 10, because what they ultimately ended up doing was that $1,000 phone, really guys, it makes sense to you? Which world do you live in? It's like literally like the phone for the 0.01%. It just doesn't make sense, and I don't understand why people are surprised that a lot of people are not buying it. That's just why. If somebody bought a $1,000 iPhone 10, why would he upgrade it the next year? He would have probably wait for 2 or 3 years before upgrading the phone. At that time, it's almost like a laptop. I completely agree that it doesn't have the functionality of a laptop. It just doesn't make any sense. And yes, you reached further than you thought you could reach, but there are plenty of companies like in 1980s who tried to do stuff which has come out in the 2000s, but they went down because they were just too ahead of their time. So this whole argument about Face ID and you could use Face ID and that costs more and all of that stuff. It makes no sense because they have gone this route before, trying to make stuff which is super expensive, which nobody bought, and then things went down. So, so that is the truth about it. The truth about the whole thing is that when you look at their product line right now, they have too many products, and they're all over the place. I don't want 20 iPads. Just give me 2 iPads. One is a mini, right? And one is maybe 10.5 or 9.7, both with OLED screens. Give me a watch which is, you can do better than this. And the new Apple Series 4 is a monstrosity, okay? I know a lot of people like it, but it reminds me of those 20-year-old Casio phones which are like huge. The Casio watches. Ugly. Ugly. You put it on, I just couldn't bear it. I mean, honestly, you see that watch and I just don't understand how 90% of the people can wear it because it's just so big. And they had the perfect form factor, the 42-inch, and they don't have 42-inch now. The 38-inch Series 4 is too small for me, and the 44-inch is too big for me. And there is no 42-inch. I mean, why do you really need something like that? I mean, honestly. You really need a 38-inch or maybe even 36 because I know people with very small hands. 30, they feel the 38 is too small, too big, right? So you need something smaller or maybe a 38 and you need 42. You definitely don't need 44. With regards to the phones, like I said, the iPhone XS and the XS Max. The XS obviously is a perfect, you can hold it. XS Max, because it's not as wide, it's okay. The notch is definitely ugly. Steve Jobs would never have approved that ugly notch. It's just unbelievable that they went with it, honestly speaking. It's really sad, that's all I can say. I mean, people should not be surprised, you know. And I'm just saying it as it is. I mean, everybody who knew stuff, they just, people went away. No, you just have a lot of people who just like to get along together. You need some tension too. I mean, if everybody just gets along together, it's like, sometimes it feels like they're just playing games there at Cupertino, That is just, it's almost like we make anything and they'll buy it. So they just sell whatever they want to sell and, now they're surprised why nobody's buying it because people is only going to tolerate it for so long. Regarding the Mac Mini, again, it's very expensive. Give us something modular. Give us something which can be upgradable. Because it's computers, There is an end of the market, maybe a higher end of the market, which doesn't want to deal with anything and where you can sell stuff but that is just part of it. I believe that almost, especially for a computer, you need to have a laptop, you need to have something like a Mac Mini, and you need to have something like a Pro machine, which is completely modular and where you can upgrade stuff. Because people, ideally, like to keep the computer for a long time. Because they just keep working on it and it's just hard to to just move on from PC to PC. Not everybody wants to upgrade every year or so. So that is where we are right now. I hope that they get out of it, although it doesn't seem likely in this way. I mean, don't get me wrong, Tim Cook is great. He can sell stuff, but you can only sell junk for so long, After some point of time, you have to make something which is come on guys, you can do it. I mean, you have done it before. You just have to go back to the roots, Maybe all the people who contributed to making the edgy design, they just went away after Steve Jobs died. You got only people who just get along well together and who just, just have the same kind of design which we have seen in the past few years. It's just sad. That's all I'll say. Shrink your product lines. You have too many products right now. And for the few products you have, make it good. We don't want 10 different iPhones. We don't want 10 different iPads. We don't want 5 different Apple Watches. We don't want 20 different Macs. You just need to have one, Too much choice. It's just, it's just, you're just disfocused, And At this point, it's like, I mean, you know the situation about Windows 10 is really bad. I need to have a whole full video on that, but I truly believe that in the future, the ideal world would be every desktop uses a Mac, right? Microsoft just builds software which runs on the Mac, and maybe only Windows Server is left. But you know, it's right there, guys. It's right there. Windows 10 is so bad that it's just strange to me that, you know, and I don't know what Google is doing, because like Android, Chrome OS, whatever it is, if they had just built an operating system which you can just install on any PC, you know, x86, they would have conquered the world by now. But they didn't do that for whatever reason. They still stay on phones and on, you know, Chromebooks and laptops. Uh, so the Mac OS is out there. It's just for the taking. Microsoft is even building Visual Studio for the Mac. You know, there's Office for the Mac. It is the best operating system right there. They just need to get their head back in the game and try to go into those areas where they couldn't go before, and there is so much of it left out there. And not try to add more product lines. We already have too many product lines, and it's just, you know, some things are ignored. What is up with the music player? You went and made Apple Music, and now the iPod function doesn't work anymore. I mean, I have a lot of songs on my iPhone, and it's just completely ignored. There are things which crash and burn all the time. You can't play your own files. I don't want to listen to the low resolution music. I want to listen to my own, you know, the CDs I have, the rips I have of the CDs, right? And high resolution music I want to hear, and I can't hear because the iPod part of the iPhone doesn't really work that well anymore. They want me to use Apple Music. I don't want to use Apple Music. What's up with that, you know? High definition music streaming, that's something you can do. There is so much which can be done. You just need to reduce the focus on the things which you can really do well. Like, there is no good high definition music player anymore, anywhere, and you already have the iTunes store. Why not just make it high resolution music? The bandwidth is there with 5G, is going to come anyway, and it would be perfect, right? That's where it needs to go, and that is my advice to Apple. Thank you, guys. It has been a pleasure talking to you, and yes, I need to make one more video on the laptops. That will come soon. Thank you.